Every day you have to sell to people. You might be selling an idea, you might be selling the status of a project and why it's not all that bad, you might be selling the idea of change, and you might even be selling the idea of why someone shouldn't feel bad about themselves. We humans are emotional creatures, and we don't do well with lists, features, or logical reasons. If we are to sell to people and persuade them, then we need to tap into their emotions and provide the context of what we're trying to tell them. Otherwise, they may not be able to step into our viewpoint and understand what we are trying to say. The most effective way of selling to people is to use framing or storytelling. This gives people a way of being able to step into each other's worlds. Telling stories using framing allows people from different backgrounds and disciplines to meet on common ground. In this video, we're going to explore the idea of using different framing techniques and the examples that I often use. Framing is a really useful concept in business because it enables you to persuade people and sell to people your ideas or the way you want to do things. And it works well, particularly when the people that you're talking to are not experts in the topic that you are. So framing is not just about selling and persuading people, your idea or to buy that thing, but it enables people to have a common ground to understand complex topics. It's really useful to mediate between people or to mediate towards a certain goal. It's also useful if you want to achieve a common goal and you have lots of different perspectives from different disciplines. So someone from engineering, some from marketing, someone from product. Framing really enables you to speak a common language between disciplines so that you can motivate everyone towards a common goal. So I'm going to give you some examples and some of the analogies and the framing that I use in my business to be able to persuade people and bring everyone together. You don't have to use the same examples as me. This is really just giving you an idea about how I bring people together by giving them context and giving them analogies and giving them stories to understand. And I'm going to give you the different scenarios that I might apply them in. Because you can apply framing techniques for everything. You can apply them in project management, you can apply them in sales, you can apply them when you've got a bunch of people that are just disagreeing with each other. You can even apply them to make people feel better about themselves. So I'm going to give you a whole bunch of examples and hopefully they're going to be useful to you. So the first frame I'm going to talk to you about is the beach ball. I love the beach ball framework because I use it when there's a whole bunch of people that are disagreeing. And the objective of the beach ball frame that I'm just about to give you is to allow people to understand that they have different perspectives. So it goes a little bit like this. Say you're in a room and you've got a whole bunch of people that are around the room. And you say to everyone, right, we need to imagine there's a beach ball. It looks like a beach ball. It acts like a beach ball in a sense that it's full of air, it bounces and it's very light. But everybody's seeing it from different perspectives. So the one thing that we can agree on is that this is a beach ball, but we're all disagreeing over the colour. Because as we know, beach balls have different colours and depending on your view on it, you're seeing a different colour. So I might be seeing it as red, this person's seeing it as blue, this person's seeing it as green, that person's seeing it as yellow. We can all agree it's a beach ball, but from our perspectives, we're still seeing a different thing. And so this is where this frame comes in really well, because if you explain that, then you can say in this meeting, the idea is that we're going to turn the beach ball so that we can all see from different people's perspectives. Now, what that frame is doing is allowing people to think, actually, I am right in my perspective, but I didn't realise that that person also may be right in their perspective as well, because they're seeing the same thing but just from a different perspective. And that's the whole idea of this frame. It allows people to start breaking down barriers because it allows people to see things from other people's views. The other reason why I like this so much is because it allows people to lower their defences. When you're able to say to someone, listen, you're right and you're right, you're both right, you're just seeing it from a different angle and you can talk about the beach ball, then it's going to allow people to lower their defences. Now, I do get criticised for this because people say, it's a load of drivel and it's just corporate talk and things like that. Yeah, it might be. Yeah, that's fair enough. There's a point. You don't have to use it. I find it's really effective. I like it because when I explain this, when there's a group that's really, really arguing and I explain about this beach ball, then I tend to find that 9 out of 10 times it calms everything down and then people can start working towards finding what that goal is. So the beach ball frame is one of my favourites and I always start with that. This one's a pretty short one. This is really about comparing apples and apples. And I say that all the time because sometimes when you're in business or you're in even, in any other discipline, you need to get everybody thinking about the same type of thing. And a lot of the times what you find is people are comparing two different things. In other words, someone might be trying to compare value like with revenue or profit with revenue. But even though they're money, it's actually two different things. The biggest problem I find in, for example, product, when you're having product discussions, is people are saying we need to build this product because it's going to do this, and we're going to build this product because it's going to do that. But the benefit of this particular product is that it's going to generate $10,000, and the benefit of this product is that it's going to get our name out there. It's just one of those things that doesn't really necessarily generate value, but it's more strategic. So the frame I like to use at this point is to say, guys, we need to be able to compare apples with apples. So the saying is, you're comparing apples with oranges, and by saying things like, look, we need to compare apples and apples to be able to decide which one's going to be more valuable for us, we can take this discussion forward because it means that we're all going to agree. So how do we find this strategic item that you guys want to build? How do we figure out how to turn that into a monetary, or how do we figure out how to turn this monetary item into something more strategic? So the apples and apples frame is a relatively simple one. It probably doesn't even belong in this video, to be honest, but I use it quite a lot of the time because it's a way of me orientating people around the room to be able to look at two different separate things and figure out how to actually compare them. Using stories is a really powerful one, but it does take practice. The idea is that you need to persuade someone of a particular point of view or a particular idea. And the only way that you can do that is to frame a story around it. Let's say you've got a salesperson that's trying to persuade someone to buy their latest product. And this particular product, according to the salesperson, is going to benefit their business exponentially. Now, if that salesperson is trying to tell that person they're selling to all about the features and the latest things it can do, it's not going to really do anything for their sales. A lot of the time, when you're trying to persuade someone to part with cash or to do something, and you're being told all of the reasons why you should do it, you're really going to be thinking about all the reasons why you don't want to do it. It could be for a number of reasons. You might not want to part with the cash, you might not have the budget, you might you just don't like being told what to do. It's very difficult for a salesperson to just sell something if they're just talking about the features. But if you switch that frame to why, or how, why they would want to do it in terms of, you try and connect with their emotion, or you paint a picture, then you start getting a different outcome. So you can throw little stories out there, things like, that's what the knight said when he went into battle with a sword and the salesman behind him was trying to sell him a machine gun. It's an absurd example, it's an absurd story. But what it does, it paints the picture in their head that thing they're selling might actually give them a competitive advantage. The other way you can frame that, and by the way, don't use those examples unless you can kind of make it funny and it fits with the story, because if you just start talking about knights and machine guns, they're going to think you're crazy. Imagine that you're going to your next meeting, and instead of having all these problems that you usually have, because you bought this product, it takes care of it for you. So you can use framing by giving them a story and projecting a story. So you can say something like this. Let's pretend that you are selling an electric scooter to someone, and they don't really know why they would want to buy an electric scooter. They're £200-300, and you don't really know why. They don't know why they would buy this thing in the first place. They're relatively fit. You can say, imagine that you've just come outside and you're going to work. It's a really hot day, it's 30 degrees, and instead of you sweating and walking in that sun, you can just breeze along on your scooter. You'll get to your job more quickly, but also you won't get so hot. What you've done is you've created a story around that, like a frame for them to understand and get into the picture, get into their head. And that person who is listening to that story is thinking, actually, yeah, maybe I could use it on a hot day. I didn't really think about that. So use stories to be able to frame ideas and concepts that the person you're selling to doesn't necessarily have to think about how they would apply all those features, but they think about the feeling and the problem that it's going to be solving for them. Here's another great example, maybe in work. So let's say that you need to persuade some people within your work that you want to take on a new software because it's going to solve a problem. The worst thing that you can do is try and persuade managers that this particular software, the reason why you want them to spend time on their software, and spend $10,000 a year on this software, is because it has all these features. The manager's not going to know what these features are for, and they don't really understand. But you can frame it using a story, and you can say, imagine that instead of all the problems we have developing these processes and all this time and money that we spend developing these processes, we can have it at a click of a button and it's all done, which means that we're saving all this manpower. To be more specific, let's pretend that you want to install a word processor because everyone's using typewriters. Taking a snapshot is a really important one, and you should use this wherever you go in business, because people have very bad memories and they focus on the thing that has immediately come before or the thing that's immediately coming afterwards. Now, this is really important when you are going through a change management. It's especially if you have a process that you need to install and it's going to take you 6 months, or you've taken over a department or a new team and you're changing that team for the better, you're developing them, but it takes time. Now, what happens is a senior manager a lot of the time will come along at some point, even someone that you've never met, and now take a look at what's happening in your division or your department, and they'll say, you're doing a bad job because this and this isn't good enough. And the problem is they might be right, but they don't see all of the progress that you've done over the last 6 months to a year. There's 2 frames that you can actually use for this. So first of all, you say, do you know what, Mr. Manager? You're absolutely right. If you take a snapshot of my department right now, or if you take a snapshot of this project or this thing right now, it doesn't look good. But if you took a snapshot of where we started at the beginning, you would see how far we've come. So don't just look at this snapshot of the way things are, look at the trajectory. Because if we carry on this trajectory, then in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, at the end of the week next week, you will find that we've achieved all of our goals and we won't have these problems anymore. So the snapshot framework is actually really powerful, and you probably will have to use it a lot of the time. The other thing that goes alongside this frame is the analogy of going to the gym, and you can use this when you're just about to embark on a big change. And the way I always say to everyone is, this is going to be a long drawn out process. This is going to be very incremental. We are going to benefit, we are going to improve, but this is going to be like going to the gym. Every day we go to the gym and we're going to be working on our muscles. And every day we come home, we're going to be looking at our muscles in the mirror and thinking, we haven't done anything. There's been no improvement. And of course that's the case. You don't improve your muscles by going to the gym once. You improve your muscles by going to the gym every day for 6 weeks. So if we improve something small every day or even every week, then in 6 months' time, we're going to look back on what we've done and think, wow, we've really made a lot of improvements there. So the snapshot frame and the gym frame are 2 really important ones that you should be using, or some kind of variation when you're talking about progress. One for what you've done and one for what you're just about to do. Now the last one, you could argue whether this actually belongs here or not, but this is I use this to make people feel better. Now it's not exactly a frame, but it is along the story side. So you might have someone in your team or in your company, or you might have a colleague, and they might have really messed up at work. They might have done some kind of like horrific mistake. At these times, especially if they work for me, when they turn around and say, or I've discovered that they've done something bad, or they've said to me, Dean, I need to confess, I've done something really bad here, and you kind of go through it with them, but you know they feel bad. Sometimes it doesn't really matter how bad it doesn't matter how much you've tried to comfort them, they just feel bad about the mistake that they've made. And what I always do is I tell a story, and I always tell a story about how I messed up in the past. So it could be, do you know what, I'm going to tell you this story. If you think that's bad, you should have seen what I did here. And I talked about all different types of stories, all different types of really horrific mistakes that I've made in the past. And again, what I'm doing is I'm kind of just projecting this frame where I'm letting them know that it's okay to make mistakes, that we're all human and we make mistakes all the time. And if they look at me and I'm kind of confessing that I'm also, fallible, I'm also not someone that never makes mistakes, then they're going to feel better about that as well. So I always encourage people to tell stories about when, especially if they're managers of people, tell stories to make that person feel better, and it puts them in the frame of just comfort. So I hope you found that useful. There's a few small tips. If you are finding this channel beneficial, please like and subscribe, and it will really help the channel grow. Please don't hesitate to put in the comments if you want me to talk or make a video about anything, and I really hope that these tips help you. So have a great day.